Hello, welcome to Harry's Horror Books page, and today I'm going to be discussing my favorite author. All of us horror fans and horror collectors have an author that we love, an author that's resonated with us, an author we have perhaps collected all kinds of memorabilia and ephemera from, and to me, that author is Jack Ketchum. I'm going to showcase all my books from him. We have Off Season, his first book from 1981. What is cool about all my books I got from him? Well, this one's my mom's copy. That's why I'm showing it first. This one is autographed. I would follow Jack around the country, well, East Coast I should say, and get stuff signed and autographed. He would do the Chiller Horror Convention in New Jersey twice a year. I've traveled to see him at the World Horror Convention. Pop-ups he did in the city at little places in the Lower East Side. Barnes & Noble's on the Upper West Side where he lived. He'd always have a signing when he had a new Leisure reprint coming out. So I was always around, hanging out with him, chatting. Had drinks with him in DC, I think it was, or Baltimore at the World Horror Convention. And he graciously signed hundreds and hundreds of things for me. The only thing I have left are my paperbacks. I've sold my limited edition hardcovers, my lettered hardcovers, all his men's magazines, all his Hit Parader and Cream and record reviews that he wrote back in the 70s, a whole bunch of other odds and ends, the letters to the editor from the Franklin Mint books that he did, which I gave away to Kevin, who was Jack Ketchum's webmaster, so he has them in his curated collection of Jack Ketchum stuff. And here is another copy of Off Season, which is the promo copy with the severed arm, which never made it into the stores. And this is a autograph to me, signed by Dallas, which was his real name, Dallas Mayer. Also have a French Off Season. These French covers of all these horror books are phenomenal. I have a couple Gary Brander covers. I have a John Helkin cover. And even Ketchum. Couldn't believe the cover. His next book was Hide and Seek, which is a good book also. All his books are good. This one is also autographed to me. And there we go. Another French copy, which is signed and dated to me. And a third Hide and Seek. Again, a rare one according to Ketchum. His next book is Cover. A nice gatefold cover. Signed. And a reprint of Cover. You know, this is when I would go see him at Barnes & Noble in the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And he graciously signed everything I brought. His next book is She Wakes, which was a highly sought after book for a while. I don't know why it isn't anymore, but, you know, also signed. And all my Ketchum books that are signed, I personally got signed by him. I didn't buy anything autographed. I literally went around and had him sign copies, including this reprint of She Wakes. Here is his piece de resistance, The Girl Next Door, the famous cheerleader cover, which has nothing to do with the story inside, but this is probably the book that everyone wants from him. It's a rough, riveting, gut-wrenching book. I don't remember when I read it in 1991 if I cried or not. Probably did. But when I saw the movie, I cried in the theater watching it. It's a book I would like to go back and reread, but at the same time, I don't want to. It's that rough. It's worth its reputation. And the thing about Ketchum is, if you look at all these books, they're thin. Thin. You know, he's not writing 800-page opuses. He was very lean, yet ferocious with his prose. he can pack a punch with very limited words, very limited page count, and got his point across and gut punched you with most of his books. You know, this is his old girlfriend. Modern reprint, probably from 2004, I'm betting, as well. But, you know, again, every time these came out, I would go see him. Offspring, my mom's copy. And, oops, sorry, that's my mom's copy. My copy is a little cleaner and autographed. English reprint of Off Season, which should have been in the beginning of the stack. Modern reprint of Offspring. Joyride, which doesn't get a lot of talking about, but it's a damn good ride as well. Signed. Stranglehold. Signed. Red, which is a book that made me cry. I'm an animal lover. The beginning of the book really hit me. But also signed. The reprint, which is actually signed to my wife, who would come with me to see him. My wife ran into him in the Upper West Side of Manhattan once when she got off a bus and was walking to where she was going, and she bumped into Jack Ketchum just wandering the streets. Japanese version of Red. I would get these Japanese versions as well and get them signed. Ladies' Night. Trade paperback. To my knowledge, this has never had a regular paperback printing. This one is not signed. Right to Life, which I did have the hardcover of, but I got the Japanese paperback, autographed in 2004. We got The Lost, which is a later book of his, signed. And this one, from my memory, reminds me of the Charles Schmidt serial killer case, the Pied Piper of Tucson, I think he was called. And we got Peaceable Kingdom, which is one of his numerous short story collections. This one is signed in 2003. And this one has The Story of the Rifle. Another story of his that made me cry when I first read it. Don't remember exactly where I read it. It may have been a Cemetery Dance magazine, but it's a gut punch of a story. To summarize it very quickly, a mother has a young son. I think he's like 10, 11 years old. He's been torturing and killing animals, nailing their carcasses up. One day she finds a rifle in his closet, finds ammunition under his pillow. She knows what he's going to become, and she makes the decision to end his life. Very short story, 13 pages according to this, but it hits you like a ton of bricks. Again, the thing with Jack was his efficiency with his words, how he conveyed his message, and he didn't let the story get cluttered up with subplots and characters who really didn't advance the story. He was vicious. When Stephen King called him the most dangerous writer alive, there was a reason for that. When Peter Straub said that, most people found Jack Ketchum for the wrong reasons, but stayed with him for the right reasons, that was truth in that as well. He could write his ass off. I still think he's very underappreciated. At some point, I'm going to revisit some of his stuff. And my introduction to him came from the first copy here, my mom's copy of Off Season. She had this in her library. I know I read it, probably not when it was new in '81, but I remember coming across a review of this in Fangoria magazine. And this has got to be in the teens of Fangoria's run, issue 17, 18, something like that. I used to work at a comic and collectible store back in Buffalo, New York from 85 to 89. I used to hang out and shop there before then. Comic store was called Fantasy World. Shout out to Norm, the owner, who is still around. The comic store is not around anymore, but Norm still has an eBay presence, and him and I still chat. But I remember reading the review in Fangoria magazine, because I'm a horror lover, and I think that's when I remembered seeing the book in my mom's library and read it. When I moved to New York City in 1989, we lived in Brooklyn for a year. My roommate was away. Forgot what she was doing, but she tasked me with finding us another place to live when our lease was up. So I found a place on Astoria, Queens, a basement of a mansion. I thought it was a cool place to live. My roommate hated it. She was like, why did I ever pick a place like this? My reasoning was, it was within walking distance to a library, which in fact it was. And that's where I found the girl next door on a spinner rack of a public library in Astoria, Queens, off of 12th Street, I believe. So I remember reading that then from the damn library, which coincidentally my brother-in-law lives across the street from this library now, so it's nice when we go out there to visit him that I just realized, well, this is the library. This is what I picked as the only thing I needed in the neighborhood to live in, was a library. But when we lived in Brooklyn, I had a library within walking distance as well. So before I could start buying books, I had to have access to free books. And besides the paperbacks from Ketchum, he had a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't know where I put the one magazine. Hold on one second. Here's a very odd, peculiar magazine. Miniature Collector number 8. This is from the early 70s, I believe. And it is autographed because, again, I brought everything to Ketchum to get autographed. This is from 1978. So he wrote a little story in here. Not even a story. It's called The Peculiar Passion of Paula White. About this person who's decorating their little dollhouse, because this is a miniature collector. It's about people who collected miniature houses, miniature figures. But again, it's one of the pieces of ephemera I still have around. All my other stuff over the years have sold, traded away, or gave to Jack Ketchum's webmaster so he could have them in his possession for the Jack Ketchum bibliography that he does, and just so he could have copies of stuff he didn't have. One of the coolest stories I had with Ketchum, at one of the Chiller conventions, I had a stack of High Society magazines that he wrote in, and he didn't have them in his collection. His agent told me that. So the next time I was in Chiller, which is 6 months after that, I got more copies of these, and I gave him copies for his personal collection, because all he had was his submission, not the actual magazine. And back in the day, New York City, Times Square was a sleazy, seedy place full of adult video stores, adult bookstores, and all that type of stuff. I had a 3x5 index card of all the men's magazines that Ketchum was in, and Stephen King, but I was looking for those two. Only found one Stephen King. But I was perusing all these stores, looking at back issues of porn magazines, looking for Gent and Cavalier and Swank and Gallery and Wee. And I found every single Jack Ketchum adult magazine he did. I had every Cream magazine, every other music magazine he did stuff in. Some of the names are escaping me right now. And not many people know this. He directed an off-Broadway play called Serial, S-E-R-E-A-L, about a serial killer. I had a copy of the playbill, which blew his mind when I presented that to him to autograph for me at a convention. But anyway, I know a lot of you who are watching my channel are fans of Jack Ketchum. Steven from the Little Library of Horrors, I know you like Ketchum because I've traded you a couple of his books in the past, and you and I have discussed him. But again, I hope some of the people watching this will find a Ketchum book, pick it up and read it, then pick up more and read it, because that's what he would have wanted. You know, he was a writer first and foremost of anything he's done, and He loved talking about his books. He loved hearing the fans' impact, and he had no problems at all with me being the fanatic part of fan, showing up with duffel bags full of stuff for him to sign. But anyway, thank you for taking the time to watch and listen, and look for my next video, hopefully within a week or so. Take care, have a good night, and grab a Ketchum book.